Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Oaks Countdown. Nicole, Russo in Kentucky, joined by Dan Illman in New York. And the story of this past weekend on the Oaks Trail took place down in Florida. As we take a look at the points leaderboard toward that 14-horse Oaks starting gate, you'll immediately see the new name near the top in Wholebodemeister, who sprang a 52-1 upset in the Davona Dale on Saturday as champion Vequist essentially eased to ninth in her 3-year-old debut. And Dan, what to make of the divisional picture now?
It is completely topsy-turvy, at least in South Florida. Wholebodemeister didn't run like a 52-1 shot. She won by the length of the stretch, but the story of the race was Vequist. It was more than a disappointing performance. It was a disastrous performance. Now, the connections scoped her after the race. They found some mucus. Maybe she was under the weather, but still, this is not a good way to go about taking your first step on the road to the Kentucky Oaks, and all of a sudden she went from the head of the class to being behind the 8 ball.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, trainer Butch Reed said after the race, they scoped her. She came up with a little bit of mucus in her throat. Perhaps she was sort of incubating, just sort of a little bug before the race that then the stress of the race exacerbated. And, that was the first time she showed the effects that can happen with horses in athletic performance. Other than that, she came out of the race sound, well. I think perhaps she deserves a mulligan considering how consistent she was as a 2-year-old, but we're getting down to about 8 weeks to go until the Oaks. There certainly won't be time for another sort of backward step like that. The biggest concern for me, assuming she bounces back from that little bit of mucus in her throat, that little bit of bug that she's got, assuming that she bounces out of that quickly, the biggest concern for me is that you plan on a 2-prep schedule for these horses, and she certainly got nothing out of this prep as we're getting down to, kind of crunch time for the Oaks fillies.
Well, that's an excellent point. You want to have a lot of stamina and a lot of bottom going into the demanding 9-furlong distance of the Kentucky Oaks. Vequist got nothing out of the race, as you correctly state. I'm concerned that maybe she was just one of those early 2-year-old fillies, and now the rest of this crop is beginning to catch up with her from a physical standpoint. We're going to learn a lot more from Vequist from her next start, but boy, again, a very disappointing performance for her and all of her backers, certainly.
Certainly. And turning our attention to the winner, Wholebodemeister didn't just step up and win the race when the favorite faltered. She dominated it, as you said. She broke alertly, shook off challengers to control the tempo, perhaps got a little brave on the lead as she lengthened to the finish line, winning by 6.5 lengths. An interesting pedigree, as she's a daughter of Bodemeister, who, of course, had Derby winner Always Dreaming in his first crop. The dam is the Scat Daddy mare, Whole Lotta Shaken, multiple stakes placed around 2 turns on the turf, beaten a couple of times by a champion in Day at the Spa. Wholebodemeister, we're going to expect to see her move on to the Gulfstream Park Oaks, where she'll be adding some more distance. And Dan, what to make of this upset winner?
Well, she was certainly impressive on this day. The fact of the matter was, other than the fact that Vequist didn't run, and Milfoui, arguably one of the other main contenders in the race, ran into a little trouble before her disappointing effort. There wasn't really much in this race. You could argue that the top 3-year-old filly based in South Florida right now is Malathat, who missed about a month on the work tab and just returned to breezing for trainer Todd Pletcher. Wholebodemeister certainly looked good in this race. I'm not completely sold just yet. I'm going to need to see it again. The Davona Dale was a 1-turn mile. We saw her a little bit green with her lead changes in the stretch. Things are going to get tougher in a hurry.
Yeah, and it certainly sounds from listening to her trainer that she's a little bit green, a little bit high strung. So I'll be interested in seeing how she continues to mature with experience. She was more experienced coming in than some of these fillies, but I think we're going to learn a lot more about a lot of horses in the coming month. You'll see in our chart of upcoming points races that we're going to be kicking up to a lot of these 50-point preps now. We're going to be running at Aqueduct at Oaklawn this coming weekend. And then on Sunday, the San Santa Isabel at Santa Anita will start taking the temperature of some of these fillies in various regions. And then, of course, we've got that strong duo down at the fairgrounds who we might see later in March in Clairiere and Travel Column. Certainly, you know, the picture going to start really coming into focus here, as we said, getting down to crunch time, the Kentucky Oaks 8 weeks from this coming Friday, and we'll be continuing to follow it on the Oaks Countdown.